So what was the page number? Sonal Priya?
Ma'am, we are discussing about the strategies of that players. Then after that,
Playing that day, but what was the page number? Then
88, 88, ma'am.
88. Okay. Last day's game was over. At last, Buccaneers won. This was the last scene which we discussed. Now here, again, next episode is starting. That is about Bill Wilson. Okay. From here, start Vishal Kumar.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Start.
Understand how one changing team
Vishal, you have connection issue. Leave
outside the force.
Leave it, Vishal. Krishna,
Yes, ma'am.
You have connection issue. Leave it. Krishna, you read. Mute yourself first, Vishal. And Krishna, you need to unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
At the end of the game,
From
Link
here,
and
to understand how coach focus.
yes, ma'am.
From here, to understand. Not getting my voice or what?
Yes, ma'am.
From here, you have to read to understand. Able to see the cursor?
Ma'am, at the end से दिख रहा है मेरे screen पे.
What can you see, Sonal Priya?
ma'am, to understand how.
Yes, ma'am. Up to understand.
Proceed then.
To understand how a coach focus on changing habits could remake a team, it's necessary to look outside the world of sports, way outside, to a dingy basement on the Lower East Side of New York City in 1934, where one of the largest and most successful attempts at wide-scale habit change was born. Sitting in the basement was a 39-year-old alcoholic named Will Wilson. Year earlier,
What has been said about Bill Wilson, that is, he is 39 years old and he is alcoholic. Means he have addiction of alcohol. Okay. This is what introduction is given about Bill Wilson. Proceed.
Wilson had taken his first drink during officers' training camp in New Bedford, Massachusetts, where he was learning to fire machine guns before getting shipped to France and World War Prominent.
World War One, not I prominent. World War One, then full stop.
Yes, ma'am. World War One.
First addiction he got from officers training camp. Okay, where he was learning to fire machine gun. Fine. Prominent is another sentence.
Prominent families who lived near the base often invited officers to dinner, and one Sunday night, Wilson attended a party where he was served rarebit and beer. He was 22 years old and had never had alcohol before. The only polite thing, it seemed, was to drink the glass served to him. A few weeks later, Wilson was invited to another elegant affair. Men were in tuxedos. Women were fluttering. A butler came by and put a strong cocktail, a combination of gin, dry and sweet vermouth, and orange juice. Into Wilson's hand, he took a sip and felt. He later said, as if he had found the elixir of life. By the mid 1930s, back from Europe, his marriage falling apart and a
Fortune. Fortune.
Fortune from selling stocks vaporized. Wilson was consuming 3 bottles of brews a day. On a cold November afternoon, while he was sitting in the gloom, an old drinking body called Wilson invited him over and mixed a pitcher of pineapple juice, and again he poured his friend a glass. His friend handed it back. He would been sober for 2 months, he said.
Understood. His friend left it. He was also alcoholic, but his friend addiction is over now, and he's sober for 2 months. Means from 2 months he haven't touched even. Right. So again, Wilson was astonished. Why he was astonished? Because he knew his friend that he was very much addicted to that thing. Okay. So how he got rid from that is been discussed later.
Wilson was astonished. He started describing his own struggles with alcohol, including the fight he would gotten into a country club that had cost him his job. He had tried to quit. He said, no ma'am. Quit, he said, but couldn't manage it. He would have been to detox and had taken pills. He would made promises to his wife and joined abstinence groups. None of it worked. How Wilson asked had his friend said. He talked about hell and temptation, sin, and the devil. Realize you are licked. Admit it and get willing to turn your life over to God. Wilson thought the guy was nuts.
Have you understood this line? What suggestion he gave? Have you understood what suggestion he gave? He asked his friend, that how he was able to get free from that addiction. And what suggestion he gave? That I got religion. Okay, he talked about hell. When people talk about hell and heaven, when that person is into spirituality. Yes, so it is totally about spirituality. Okay.
Wilson thought the guy was nuts. Last summer, an alcoholic crackpot. Now I suspected a little crack about religion. He later wrote, when his friend left, Wilson polished off the booze and went to bed. A month later, in December 1934, Wilson checked into the Charles B. Towns Hospital for drug and alcohol addiction, an upscale Manhattan detox center. A physician started hourly infusions of a hallucinogenic drug called belladonna. Then in worked for the treatment of alcoholism. Wilson floated in and out of consciousness on a bed in a small room. Then in an episode that has been described at millions of meetings in cafeterias, union halls, and church basements, Wilson began breathing in agony.
What do you mean by this? Yes, ma'am. What do you mean by this, the highlighted one? Breathing in agony?
Sorry, ma'am.
Breathing means तड़पना. ठीक है, agony is गुस्सा. ठीक, all right.
Yes, sir.
Breathing in agony यानी गुस्से में वो तड़प रहा था. Proceed.
For days, he hallucinated the withdrawal pain, made it feel as if insects were crawling across his skin. He was so nauseous he could hardly move, but the pain was too intense to stay still. If there is a God, let him show himself. Wilson yelled to his empty room, I am ready to do anything. At that moment, he later wrote, a white light filled his room. The pain ceased, and he felt as if he were on a mountain top, and that a wind not of air but of spirit was blowing. And then it burst upon me that I was a free man. Slowly the ecstasy subsided. I lay on
So what do you
the
mean
bed.
by this? See, here also he also started talking about spirituality, right?
वो
But
तरफ
he,
रहा था इसमें.
so all these things are actually not real, but it is about the feeling of that person, of Wilson. Okay, and this means permanent. Subsided means कम होना. वो permanent धीरे धीरे वो subside होने लगा, कम होने लगा. Fine, and now he was feeling better.
I lay on the bed, but now for a time I was in another world, a new world of consciousness. Bill Wilson would
Someone else?
never.
Okay, done. Aditya Sinha, you read.
Bill Wilson would never have been another drink for the next 36 years until he died of emphysema in 1971. He would devote himself to founding, building, and spreading Alcoholic Anonymous until it became the largest, most well-known, and successful habit-changing organization in the world. An estimated.
Remember this name, Alcoholic Anonymous. This is an organization which help people to get rid of these bad habits. Fine, and further you will get to know its name as a short form of AA. So don't get confused at what it is talking about. AA is Alcoholic Anonymous.
An estimated 2.1 million people seek help from AA each year, and as many as 10 million alcoholics may have achieved sobriety through the group. AA doesn't work for everyone. Success rates are difficult to measure because of participants' anonymity, but millions credit the program with saving their lives. AA's foundational credo, the famous 12 steps, have become cultural endostones incorporated into treatment programs for overrating, gambling, debt, sex, drugs, hoarding, self-mutilation, smoking, video game addiction, emotional dependency, and dozens of other destructive behaviors.
So
The
these are
group's
the bad
techniques.
habits from which, whatever you read, these are the bad habits from which AA help to get rid of.
The group's technique offer in many respects one of most powerful formulas for change, all of which is somewhat unexpected because AA has almost no grounding in science or most accepted therapeutic methods. Alcoholism, of course, is more than a habit. It's physical addiction with psychological and perhaps genetic roots. What's so interesting about AA, however, is that the program doesn't directly attack many of the psychiatric or biochemical issues that researchers say are often at the core of many alcoholic drinks. In fact, AA's methods seem to sidestep scientific and medical findings altogether, as well as the types of intervention many psychiatrists say alcoholics really need. What AA provides instead is a method for attacking the habits that surrounded alcoholic use. AA is essence is a game machine for changing habit loops and the habit associated with alcoholism are extreme. The lessons AA provide demonstrate how almost any habit, even the most obstinate, can be changed.
Okay, from here, Aditi.
Will Vincent did not read academic journals or consult many doctors before founding AA. A few years after he achieved sobriety, he wrote the now famous 12 steps in a rush one night while sitting in bed. He chose the number 12 because there were 12 obstacles and some aspects of the program are not just unscientific, they are seen downright strange. Take, for instance, AA insistence that alcoholics attend 90 meetings in 90 days, a stretch of time it appears chosen at random. On the program's instance focused on spirituality as articulated in step 3, which says that alcoholics can achieve sobriety by making a decision to turn our will and our lives over to care of God as we understand Him. 7 of the 12 steps mention God, our spirituality, which seems odd for a program founded by a one-time agnostic who throughout his life was openly hostile to our organized religion. AA meetings do not have a prescribed schedule or curriculum. Rather, they usually begin with a member telling his on her story, after which other people can chime in. There are no professionals who guide conversation and few rules about how meetings are supposed to function. In the past few decades, as almost every aspect of physiology and addiction psychiatry and addiction research has been revolutionized by discoveries in behavioral sciences, pharmacology, and our understanding of brain. A has remained frozen in time. Because of the program's lack of rigor, academics and researchers have often criticized it. A has emphasized our spiritualism claim made it more like a cult than a treatment in the past 15 years. However, a revolution has begun. Researchers now say the program's method offer valuable reason faculty at Harvard, while the University of Chicago, the University of New Mexico, and dozens of other research centers have found a kind of science within AA there.
Aditi, thoda slow. See, here we will pronounce it as a Chicago. And here we will pronounce dozens, not dozen, dozens. Dozens and Chicago.
Okay, ma'am. Researcher centers have found a kind of science within AA that is similar to the one Tony Dungy used on the football field. Their findings endorse the golden rule of habit change. AA succeeds because it has alcoholics use the same cues and get the same reward, but it shifts the routine. Researchers says that AA works because the program forces people to identify the cues and rewards that encourage their alcoholic habits and then helps them find new behaviors. When Claude Hopkins was selling Pepsodent, he found a way to create a new habit by triggering a new craving. But the change an old habit, you must address an old craving. You have to keep the same cues and rewards as before and feed the craving by inserting a new routine.
Okay, good. From here, Anurag. Good improvement, Aditi. I hope till here everything is clear. AA strategy is being compared with this Tony Dungy strategy. Okay, as Tony Dungy what was Tony Dungy's strategy? That he thought just to change the routine part of the habit loop. He have thought not to touch the cue and not to touch the reward portion. Same thing AA organization is also doing, right? Cue and reward is same, just they are trying to change the routine part of the habit loop. Yes, same thing. It has been done comparison with both of the group, Tony Dungy and AA group. Proceed.
Take a steps for to make searching and fearless inventory of ourselves and live to admit to God ourselves and another human beings that the exact nature of wrongs. It's not obvious from they are written, but complete those steps. Some has to create a list of all triggers of their alcoholic.
What, not able to see or what?
Yes, laptop are कल टूट गया कल cut off.
What happened? You're not able to see.
Yes मैम नहीं दिख रहा.
I think your net is slow then. Satyam, what's the first time you're able to see?
Just
So you're able to see now?
just got
So,
tongue in.
you read.
Okay, ma'am. Just said J. Scott Tonigan, a researcher at the University of New Mexico, has studied AA for more than a decade. When you make a self inventory, you are figuring out all the things that make you drink, and admitting to someone else all the bad things you have done is a pretty good way of figuring out of the moments where everything is spiraled out of control. Then A asks alcoholics to search for the rewards that they get from alcohol. What craving the programs ask are driving you habit loop. Often intoxication in itself doesn't make the list. Alcoholics crave a drink because it offers escape, relaxation, companionship, the blunting of anxieties, and an opportunity for small emotional release. They might crave a cocktail to forget their worries, but they don't necessarily crave feeling drunk. The physical effect of alcohol are often one of the least rewarding part of drinking for addicts.
Now pause. One paragraph is done. Now you see what you have read this one.
Anxieties.
Anxiety.
Anxiety.
Oh, sorry.
Hmm.
Anxieties. Okay, ma'am.
Proceed.
There is a hedonistic element to alcohol, said ULF Mueller. ULF Mueller, a German neurologist who had studied brain activity among alcoholics. But people also use alcohol because they want to forget something or to satisfy other craving, and they relief craving occur in totally different part of the brain than the craving for physical pleasure. In order to offer alcoholics the same rewards they get a bar, AA has built a system of meeting and companionship. The sponsor, each member works with that striver to offer as much escape, distraction, and catharsis as a Friday night bender. If someone needs relief, then they can get it from talking to their sponsor or attending a group gathering rather than toasting a drinking party. AA forces you to create new routines for what to do each night instead of drinking, said Tonigan. You can relax and talk through your anxieties at the meetings. The triggers and payoffs stays the same. It's just the behavior that changes.
So you have seen that what changes it got from these group. Instead of this routine, it shifted to this. Means people started chatting, they started to share their experience, right? These things they shifted in routine. Rest, cue, and reward is same. Okay, from here, Shreya. Shreya, you're there?
One particularly dramatic demonstration of how alcoholic cues and reward can be transferred to new routines occurred in 2007 when Mueller, the German neurologist, and his colleague at the University of Magdeburg impacted a small electrical devices inside the brain of 5 alcoholics who had give, give up booze. The alcoholic in the study had each spent at least 6 months in rehab without success. One of them had been through detox more than 60 times. The devices implanted in the man's head were positioned inside the basal ganglia, the same part of the
Remember
brain
about
where
basal ganglia?
basal ganglia.
Remember about that? This concept where we read?
Basal ganglia.
Who can answer? No one.
name है मैम डिवाइस नेम
Huh?
डिवाइस नेम जो उसके अंदर चिप सेट किया
It's a
जाता है
device. In chapter 1, we read about that, basal ganglia. That part of the brain which is responsible for daily activity. Okay, any type of routine activity is already stored over there. Eugene's story you all know in chapter 1 about habit loop. Huh? Eugene's story, you remember or not?
Yes, ma'am.
In that we read about basal ganglia. Proceed.
The same part of the brain where the MIT researchers found the habit loop and emitted an electrical charges that interrupted the neurological reward that triggers habitual craving. After the man recovered from the operation, they were exposed to cues that had once triggered alcoholic urges, such as photos of beer or trips to a bar. Normally, it would have been impossible for them to resist a drink, but the devices inside their brain overrode each man neurological cravings. They did not touch a drop. One of them told me the craving disappeared as soon as we turned the electricity on. Mueller said. Then we turned it off and that the craving come back immediately. Eradicating and the alcoholic neurological craving, however, was not enough to stop their drinking habit. Four of them replaced soon after the surgery, usually after a stressful event. They pick up a bottle because that's how that they automatically dealt with anxiety. However, once they learned alternate routine of for dealing with the stress, the drinking stopped for good. One patient, for instance, attend AA meeting, other went to therapy, and once they incorporated those new routine of coping with stress and anxiety into their lives, the success were dramatic. The man who had gone to detox 60 times never had another drink. Two other patients had started drinking at 12, were alcoholic by 18, drank every day, and how have been sober of 4 years. Notice how closely this study holds to the golden rule of habit change, even when alcoholic brain were changed
Where
through
comma is given, you are reading like Rajdhani Express. Check out where comma is given.
Notice how closely their study holds to golden rule of habit change. Even when alcoholic brains were changed through surgery, it was not enough. The old cues and craving for rewards were still there waiting to pounce. The alcoholic only permanently changed once they learned
Again,
new
the repetition of this word, pounce.
routines.
You also read Bunky's experiment, Julio's experiment. Don't remember. No one remember?
अच्छा पट्टा मान
Huh?
पे
Uchalna.
हाँ उतना
Proceed.
The alcoholic only permanently changed once they learned new routine that drew on the old trigger and provided a familiar relief. Some brains are so addicted to alcohol that only surgery can stop it, said Mueller. But those people also need new ways for dealing with life. AA provides a similar though less invasive system for inserting new routines into old habit loops. As scientists have begun understanding how AA works, they have started applying the program method as 2 years old tantrums, sex addiction, and even minor behavioral tics. As AA method have spread, they have been refined into therapies that can be used to disrupt almost any pattern.
From here, next thing is starting, it is talking about nail biting habit. Mandy had bitten her nail. So again, alcoholic part is done. How to get rid from this thing. Now how to get rid, many people have this activity or this habit of biting their nail. So how they got rid from this, we will be reading in our next class. Remember page number 94. Okay, Sonal Priya. Page number 94.
Yes, ma'am. 94.
One,
Present, ma'am.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
6 present, ma'am.
7, 8,
Yes, ma'am.
9, 10,
Yes, ma'am.
11,
Present, ma'am.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17,
Present, ma'am.
18, 19,
Yes, ma'am.
20, 21,
Yes,
ma'am. 20.
20 is also there.
Yes, ma'am.
22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27,
Yes, ma'am.
28, 39, 30, 31, 31, 32, 30, done. All right. Thank you.